Good morning. So glad to see you all on a beautiful February morning. Still winter cold, but they painted the underline on the addition that's going up. Interesting that it's blue. Not sure why it's blue, because it's going to have brick over it afterward. I wonder if there was a color committee that chose blue for the underlaying of the... You know, color is such a big deal in congregational life because everybody has opinions about colors. The congregation I grew up in had done some renovations, and they had some new restrooms that came along with the upgrades. And there was a really strong debate about what color to paint the restrooms. And I remember one guy it had to be green. I didn't know why it had to be green. In fact, a lot of people didn't know why it had to be green. There was another person who wanted pink. Their opinion wasn't as strong, but I was like, it's a bathroom. It just could be white, right? He got so mad that they didn't paint it green, we didn't paint it green, that he left the congregation because he was so upset about it. Years later, I came to understand that we'd made a lot of changes, and the particular room that had become bathrooms, I think had been important to him, but he hadn't had a way to say how strongly he felt about it. Change comes with a lot of feelings, especially when the change is in who we are and how we are as people together. When I list all of the changes that this congregation's been through in just a couple of years, coming out of a pandemic, everybody had to do that. A lot of people in our country and the world really are just like, oh yeah, the pandemic, let's just not even think about it. But reality is, it was really hard. Reverend Allison left, and you guys adored Reverend Allison. Big change and finally getting to the building and lots of energy going into that. And I could go on. There's so many, too many. But when change comes, one of the things that I've learned, one of the ways to see each other and hug, just like Don and Jake did, that makes me really happy. That we see each other, greet each other, and are happy to see each other like that. And when we have things we've got to work out, there's this way of doing it that I found that works really, really well. It's called appreciative inquiry. And I want to share with you today some things that I've learned about appreciative inquiry and how it helps us keep our eyes on the prize, so to speak, on where we're going, and helps us have all the feels, but still, when we see each other on Sunday morning, are giving each other big hugs because we're really glad to see each other. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. You're going to have to pardon me. I'm in between prescriptions, and I'm blind as a bat, so if I stumble, that's why. I'd just like to welcome all my old friends and new. We are truly grateful you're here with us this morning in person and on Zoom. I'm Steve Parker. I'm a member of the Gateways team that's overseeing the project here, and I'm just really pleased to welcome you this morning. We're a spiritual community that understands diversity and the appreciation and acceptance of others. And we look for ways to empower each other in our spiritual growth and to support each other across all those life journeys, from birth to young adulthood and middle age and eventually becoming mentors. This is a wonderful place to go through life doing those things. I'd like to take a minute to introduce our staff. Our Director of Religious Education is Nick Walwork. He's just starting a new semester of programming, and if you have any questions about the program or about this semester, please see him. Nick, are you here? Raise your hand if you are. Everybody knows him if you don't. You can certainly find out more about our choir from Music Director Michael Rosen and enjoy his fabulous piano playing. Seated in back, our technical director, Alex West, miracle worker, guru of electronics. Our congregational administrator, Katie Julik, is in the office most days and happy, of course, to get your calls and your emails. And finally, Reverend Joel Miller is our interim minister. We have tons of announcements. They're all up electronically and printed, but I wanted to call out just a couple. Today, the fun team has arranged an afternoon at the movies at the Bernardsville Cinnamon 3 in Bernardsville. There will be 3 short films, discussion, and light refreshments. Is there anyone here that is actually going to that? Raise your hand. So see these hands, and if you need directions or details, reach out to one of those people. Tomorrow, here in the dining room, is Meals with Friends. It's a brown bag. Bring your lunch and have an opportunity to share some conversation with friends, and all are welcome. And a special announcement near and dear to my heart, next Sunday, following the service, there will be an update on the construction project. We'll go through project timing and costs and design details, hear about a couple of other teams that are working on some special issues, and take a peek at some of the interior finishes. We plan to keep this short, like about 30 minutes, because it will be running into the lunch hour. It's right after the service. There'll be a little time for Q&A, and if anyone misses it live, we will do some Zoom sessions in evenings later on. And I can't resist saying, it wasn't picked for blue. These exterior curtain walls are highly engineered for insulation and waterproofing, and what you're seeing is actually a painted-on epoxy-type layer that helps with the waterproofing. It does get covered up with a couple of more layers later. So being in worship together on Sundays is one way we learn who we are together and as individuals, and it's time to practice the spiritual practice of listening. We will understand if you need to get up and leave the room to have a conversation with others or to help someone. But in the meantime, this is a great time to settle into the spiritual practice of worship. So I'm going to ding the bell. And maybe just take a breath or two. And as you do, let go of your busy lives and all of the distractions and settle into now. This is a special time of worship, of reverence, of listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'd like to invite Eric Messias to come up He's going to help light the chalice this morning. Where did I leave that candle? Oh, we'll try this. See if that'll work. Right there. I invite you to share in our affirmation now. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant. Dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you, Eric. Please stand.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. And it's telling me that somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul.
I'd like to invite children or youth to come up and help me with the time for all ages this morning. Oh, thanks for coming up. I'd be sad if I were all alone, you know? It's good to see you all. You know, and just now I was talking about Jake, and he was hugging Jamie. I want to make sure I get your name right. Sorry about that. I wanted to let her know that, in fact, I did remember her name properly, but not at first. You know, we have a lot of feelings that we bring when we come to be with each other on Sundays, to worship service, to the coffee hours, to potlucks, to Sunday school and classes. I have very good memories of being at church. And when I first became a minister, I got together with a group of people, and we started a Unitarian Universalist church in a place called Colorado. And we were very excited about starting it. And, you know, at first we had to meet in a daycare center. And we met in a daycare center because we wanted to have a place for kids where they could play and be. as well as a place for the adults to gather. And what was interesting was that daycare center came up for sale, and it was like, ooh, maybe we could just put an offer on it. And we did, and the owner said, oh, I like Unitarian Universalists, and gave us a good price. It was really nice. So when it came time to do everything, there was only 60 people in this congregation when we were able to put this offer on this building. And a member of the congregation was a contractor, and some of us knew about, actually, now that I'm about to leave, I can say this out loud. I had worked as an electrician for a while, so I could do the wiring, not doing your wiring. I don't do that anymore. We had people with all kinds of skills, and so all as volunteers, we had all parts of redoing the building so we could make it our church building. And then came the time when we just about finished everything. It was time to put the paint up. We'd all been so busy that, well, we were kind of used to everybody having a say in what the paint would be, but we just didn't have time. So there were 3 people who were working together to design the color of the chairs and the carpet and what paint to put on the walls. And the day came when we started to paint, and we were rolling the paint out. And I remember the president of the congregation came, saw everybody working to put the paint on the walls, and there were 2 colors, sage green and terracotta orange. Right? Did you hear that? They're like, green and orange? Really? Wow, what a color mix. The president of the congregation walked in and saw this and came up to me and said, Joel, it's green and orange in the sanctuary. And I said, I know, it's paint. We can always paint it again if it just doesn't work out. But trust me, they've been thinking about this a long time. So we finished the painting, the green and orange on the wall. But you know something? When that green and orange was finished and the new ceiling colored paint was on the ceiling and the carpet was in and the chairs had come in, and then there was this beautiful tapestry that had come from the Hopi Nation people, the Hopi Indian people. And it had, it was a tapestry with corn and a June bug, which is a symbol of possibilities and new birth. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. In fact, we had a visitor come in one day. He was looking for rentals. He was part of an ashram, a Hindu group. And when he walked in, he said, oh, we have to meet here. How much? And he really meant it, and they did. It was great for rentals because it was so beautiful. It's interesting how when we try to make decisions and we're afraid, and like the man I talked about at the beginning of the service who really wanted the green bathrooms, how those kinds of details can be important to us. But one of the things I've found that's most important is how we are with each other. Or do we listen well? When we see each other, do we remind each other how much we love each other? Like Jake and Jamie giving each other a big hug. When you come here, are you seeing the many people here who care for you and love you and smiling at you? And if you're not getting enough of it, tell me, and I'll remind them to smile more at you. Because they do love you. That's part of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about appreciative inquiry. How do we ask each other or talk to each other in ways that stays loving, even when we have different ways of thinking about things? Thanks for coming up. Let me tell that story. Every Sunday in our worship service, we have a time to share significant life events, births, graduations, deaths, other significant life accomplishments, or maybe losses. Always changes. Not all the milestones or passages or gratitudes we bring with us this morning will be shared aloud, but we remember even the unspoken ones. We remember all of this because we do not have to live life and its transitions alone. It is possible, it's essential that we share our lives with each other. Because in our deepest sharing, we will find also our greatest strengths. And to remember the gratitude that we bring with us too is important, because when we feel despair or greed, rage or denial, or even feel numb because of all that goes on around us, feelings that disconnect us from our own souls and each other, gratitude frees us to celebrate what is good and look for the good in each other and our own lives. This is a gratitude I share first, and I share it even though you may have mentioned this already last week. This is from Reverend Bill Neely with the Unitarian Universalists in Princeton, New Jersey. The people of UU Princeton send our love to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in light of Toby Tyler's recent death. Toby was a fantastic partner to so many Unitarian Universalist New Jersey collaborations and congregations, especially Leadership Leaves and Unitarian Universalist Faith Action. Toby was warm, generous, encouraging, and a dependable partner in ministry for so many of us. We hold his wife, Annette, and his family in our hearts during their time of grief, even as we today light a candle of gratitude for his life, his commitment, and his friendship. Those of us fortunate to work with him will always remember his smile. This from a fellow congregation. A milestone or a passage actually today for the death of Annex Benedict, a 16-year-old in Oklahoma, a non-binary person. There's a service at the Montclair congregation to recognize that terrible loss. I think there's more information. You can talk with our dearie Nick Wallwork if you'd like to go with the group that's going to go to that. It's also the second anniversary of the war in Ukraine, a war in which so many innocent people in Russia and in Ukraine have died because of the madness of an autocrat. Please keep Donna Becker in your thoughts and prayers. Her brother passed away this week due to cancer. His funeral is this afternoon in Fairlawn. Today, February 25th, is the anniversary of my trip to West Virginia. This is from Jerry Silk. I'm back now, and I'm back to stay. Thanks to the help and love of this beloved community. Bob Scott writes that after 3 nights in Las Vegas this week, I leave for South Africa for a photo safari, mostly in Botswana, until March 13th. Then on 15th, Irene arrives and we visit South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. A lot more Namibia than last March. We return on March 31st. That sounds like an awesome trip.
Yeah, we might even be here for the service.
31st is a Sunday. It's Easter Sunday.
Easter Sunday. You'll be back for Easter. Risen back in the land of home. And for all the passages that we have been experiencing, for all the milestones we carry with us, many silently kept to ourselves or perhaps shared with friends during coffee hour. And for all the gratitudes, the many that I know are here in this room, we say thank you and amen. I invite you now into a spirit of contemplation or meditation or prayer. Spirit of life, this is a humanist prayer this morning. I'm feeling very humanist. So I spent probably 20 minutes trying to determine whether I could begin this prayer or even use the word prayer to describe what I'm doing as a humanist. And can I say spirit of life and address a prayer to some thing and still be a humanist? I don't know. I can't prove or disprove whether I ought to or ought not to do it. But as I think within my mind, as I love within my spirit, I do know I wanted to leave something of love with my people today. Actually, I wanted to leave something of love with all these folks, even long after I'm gone, and no one remembers. Who was that interim anyway? What was that guy's name? Which is fine. That's what you want when you're an interim. But I did want to leave the love part. So I wrote, I drew on the inside of those now sealed walls our principles. In the shape of the flower that they come, love, the thing that we're going to be voting on at the General Assembly. Because I wanted you to be surrounded by love and expressions of hope, possibilities of transformation. The sense of equity and democracy that we practice. Those principles that are so important to us. And as I wrote those inside those walls, I wondered, what will you do inside those walls and these walls in the years to come? I don't know exactly what you're going to do. I do know you will practice love and kindness because you aspire to do this. I know you will be courageous because I see you do that over and over again. Step into the world with courage because others are suffering or in need or whose lives can be transformed because you took action. And you are feisty. And sometimes for your staff, your feistiness is a little over the top. Don't stop being feisty, please. Because you know what? I love it that you're feisty. Greater than these walls, amazing as they are, beautiful as you have made them, greater than all of that is the spirit you're going to nurture within these walls. Every soul here, congregation, every community we birth in every moment, celebrating life, practicing hope, greeting each other in love, giving children a sense of how to be in the world. And I've seen how much has changed for you. I know also that you miss a lot of the folks who've been with you on such powerful journeys. Memorials that I have done, others have done, memorials to come. The losses are hard. A poet said once, your sadnesses are your joys unmasked. Doesn't make the sadnesses any less hard. I want more joy. I want more joy in my life. I want more joy for you, even if that means more sadness. And it will, because what opens us in joy at some point, as it changes, requires an experience of loss and sadness, and the possibility of more joy later on. I want that for me, certainly, and I do want it for you. Every moment we gather brings joys and sorrows, hopes and dreams, visions and often revisions. Today I pray as a humanist soul. Not sure I can say the word soul as a humanist, but I will anyway. Because in it I simply mean this face-to-face reaching out to greet one another in love, to listen with deep compassion, to tell our stories gently, and be open to being part of stories we cannot yet imagine. There are among you and from you untold treasures that have yet to be known. Beautiful congregation. Your love, your courage and compassion will carry you through all of the unknown yet to come. Remember and hold on to that first. Amen. So be it. Blessed be.
You can stand if you'd like.
All creatures of earth and sky, come kindred, lift your voices high. Hallelujah.
This from two scholars who study appreciative inquiry and how it is used in both organizations and in religious groups. Appreciative inquiry is the cooperative search for the best in people, the best in organizations, the best in the world. It involves thoughtful discovery of what gives a system, a community, life. When is it most effective and capable? It involves the art and practice of asking questions, good questions, questions that strengthen a system's capability, asking an unconditionally positive question. In appreciative inquiry, problem solving gives way instead to imagination and innovation. Instead of negation, of criticism, of diagnosis upon diagnosis, there is instead discovery, dreaming, design. Appreciative inquiry assumes that every living system, like a congregation, every living system has untapped, rich, and inspiring accounts of the positive, of the possible. Link this positive change spirit directly to any change agenda, and things we never think possible suddenly and democratically are mobilized. We take our offering now. Half of our offering goes to support didn't get in my manuscript, so I want to make sure I say the right thing. Interfaith Food Pantry. Okay. Thank you. And you can see in the printed order of service how you can donate, or a basket is going around, and if you're online, there's instructions in the online order of service, or right here behind me on the screen.
And the children
That song felt really good for this morning. Thank you, Bob Scott. That poem, based on a poem by Robert Louis Stevenson, "Whither must I wander? Do I have to go? Do we have to change? Do we have to have these losses?" One of the things I never expected when I went into ministry was how much I would miss my home congregation. You know, my ancestors settled Ohio just about the time it actually became a state. And there were streets named after my ancestors that I used to ride my bike on. Land that they had farmed, land where they built homes. But I got that call, that sense of what's possible in congregational life, and went to theological school. One of the things that really surprised me when I got to theological school was discovering Catholic feminists. I didn't know that was possible, and it completely disrupted my sense, my very profound humanism, where I was still, maybe the whole religious enterprise was, I suspected of maybe not quite being mentally healthy. These dedicated women who knew the theology of their tradition well enough that they knew that they had both the right and the obligation to try to help their religious movement change and grow in its respect and treatment of women. Watching that was an inspiration to me as I also then encountered my own Unitarian Universalism. Very much a humanist and very much practiced that sense of doubt that was part of the humanism I grew up with as a kid. But I noticed something as I got into ministry. I noticed that, well, things were starting to change. There were those 4-hour-long congregational meetings. Did any of you ever attend a congregational meeting here that was 4 hours long? Do you? I saw somebody nod. That used to happen. It happens less so now. And your current board has changed the way you do things with meetings. Hopefully congregations at this point, this is always my advice to congregations, have lots of conversations in the months leading up to the congregational meeting. Be like the Unitarian Universalist Church in Canton, New York. Their meetings last 15 minutes. Yeah, we talked about it. Did everybody talk? Yep, we did. Everybody did. They say, okay, what do you think about the budget? Yes, good. What do you think about the social justice stand? Yes, good. Okay, potluck, let's eat. Literally, it kind of goes like that. It was kind of exciting to see. Not that there wasn't a lot of talk that went into it. Plenty of conversation. But there was something else that was different too. I'm thinking back to all of that energy that one man put into wanting those green bathrooms way back when I was still a young adult in the congregation I grew up in, and how deeply he felt about it. And we had used all of the reason and all of the logic to choose the right color. It was all very sensible. And I think what we missed was simply sitting down with him and listening to him long enough to find out why green was so important. So when I was had been in ministry for a little while, I noticed that there was some disagreement among congregations about how to work together. And they kept coming in to meet, and they would begin planning how to do social justice projects together, say in Buffalo, for example, where I was, or in the state of New York, and how do we want to advocate for things? You have your Faith in Action group here in New Jersey, which is pretty effective, and seem to have done some really great work with congregations as they listen to one another. That's one of the things that Toby Tyler was so effective at organizing and bringing congregations together. And one of the things that wasn't happening when I was a younger minister is that we'd get into the room, and the ministers and the lay leaders alike, somebody would give the best logical, reasonable, scientifically grounded statement they could for why we should all do it this way. And then somebody else would give the same talk But from their perspective, the most logically thought out, highly reasoned, scientifically grounded ways with citations on scientific papers why we should do it this way. And 5 or 6 people could present all with their stuff, their different logical, well thought out, powerfully intellectually grounded reasoning. And nobody was listening to each other. And nobody would have been happy if we did it one way or any of the possible ways we did. Something was missing. Something was missing. So if I wanted to convince you as a congregation that what you should do when you're in the building is X. You should fill it this specific kind of way. And I could give you the most wonderfully reasoned, logical reason to do it why. But you know what? If you didn't like it, you wouldn't do it. And in fact, as you listen to me, you'd feel really kind of bored and you'd be a little mad at me like, why are you telling us, Joel? We'll figure it out. But you will. There is no reason or logic powerful enough to change a heart. To renew a spirit, to bridge profound differences between people. Because if reason and logic were enough, nobody would vote for Donald Trump. So I learned something I've learned as an interim minister. I'd encountered this appreciative inquiry my last couple of years as a minister in Buffalo, New York. And I really liked the way in which we didn't look at how we were doing business in congregational life and say, oh, we have some problems, let's fix them. Instead, we tried to figure out, well, who is it we want to be? Where is it we want to be in 5 years? What is our mission statement telling us? And instead of arguing with each other about what was the best way to go, we would have these exciting conversations about what might we be doing together in 5 years. And if we want this one thing to happen, what could we do to make it happen? What kind of plans could we make? I really enjoyed my ministry in Buffalo, and I didn't expect to become an interim minister. I'd seen many great interim ministries, but I also struggled with the practice of interim ministry before I went into it, because so often it was a spiritual issue for me. Too many of the interim ministers, from my perspective, went in and they said, let me solve your problems for you. And I didn't want to do that. It seemed disrespectful. Congregations looking at problems to be solved. We have our heads down, we're busy focusing on a spreadsheet or a series of scientific papers maybe. We're not looking up at each other, remembering how much we love each other and care for each other. When we start with a sense of, who is it? Who am I in this? And who am I with you? And what has made a difference in my life because I have been in this community with you? And how would we like to create more of that for each other? How we ask these questions, what comes out of that is nothing short of miraculous. I use the word miracle on purpose because the humanist in me is still a little itchy, like miracles. And isn't that the kind of thing where Zeus does a thunderbolt and, the Mercedes-Benz arrives in your parking lot? But that's not what I mean. This is a miracle you're here. A group of 60 people got together in 1956, and by 1957 had this building. There's no law that says there should be a UU congregation. There's no tax incentives. There's us. It's just us together, longing for the kind of community that helps our souls grow and makes the world a better place, that helps children understand how to live and love in this world. That's miraculous. Scientifically, well, maybe not scientifically, but it seems like scientifically miraculous to me. Something out of nothing. Miracles happen when a congregation can describe who it is and how it wants to be in the world in a short, pithy statement. I've talked about that with you before. Mission statements so powerful that members of a congregation will tattoo that mission statement on their skin, or perhaps write it on their hearts. When I became a minister, science and reason were the golden rule in many of our congregations, and I struggled with that as I studied ministry. Because what I realized was, growing up UU, I had been so profoundly loved by those same humanists who wanted me to practice critical thinking. They'd given me more than just a longing to think well, to reason well. They'd also taught me about love. I went to college and realized, I majored in economics because I thought, can't we at least get the world fed? The reason and logic's got to get us there. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if it was all logic and reason, voting would have gone very differently in 2016, and we wouldn't be fretting about what's going to happen next November. Some years ago, we had a little bit of a controversy. It was a leading theologian in one of our theological schools, Meadville Lombard, who's president, by the way, the president of our theological school in Chicago there, is a member of this congregation. And this theologian this was back about 20 years ago now, Professor David Bumbaugh. He gave a talk in which he talked about, let's have a language of reverence. We have this language of reason and logic, but it's a language that's about doubt. And we need a language of reverence that lets us talk about what we love and how we want to love together. Well, this got reported in the news when he did a talk in Texas. And a Texas paper said something more along the lines of, Unitarian Universalist professor says they can say God now. They're all going back to Jesus, apparently. Yeah. Which was not true at all, although some of us may be Christian and Jesus may be central in our beliefs. But to say that as a movement, the reaction from those in our movement who describe themselves as humanist was one of anger, but really one of some loss and some grief, sadness, really. When I was a kid growing up in the 1960s, the people who were raising me sincerely hoped that maybe Unitarian Universalism would have a congregation on every corner in every neighborhood, and that millions of people would be calling themselves humanist or Unitarian Universalist. And this hadn't happened. And so when Bumbaugh was misquoted as saying, well, we're going to go back and use the word God now, which is not what he was actually arguing about, the response was quick, angry, and there was a lot of sadness in it. And that's when I realized how important this appreciative inquiry is for us, to ask one another the most important question I love to ask as an interim minister. What do you love about your fellowship? What do you love about each other? And what your people do for you? And how would you like to bring others into that wonderful experience? And how might you actually develop a plan for that to happen? And that's it. That's simply it. That's appreciative inquiry. It's not to give up on science or reason or critical thinking at all. You use all of that while thinking appreciatively. The world needs you. I know I keep saying it from the pulpit over and over again, but you've saved lives in the past because of who you are and how you love. You're building more walls so that more souls can fit into the arms of community. I'm so interested in knowing. I am so interested in knowing. I don't know when the last time was you could fit all of you as a congregation into one room. Maybe this room at some point when you had maybe a dinner. I heard there were some dinners in here early on. But as big as you are now, that's the room where you're going to sit together and have a potluck, and you'll all actually be together rather than spread out around the building. And as an interim, I can tell you, I have no idea how you're going to be changed by that, but you are going to be changed, and it's going to be beautiful. And it'll be a little frustrating because you aren't going to know how it's going to change you either. Keep practicing appreciative inquiry. Who are we together? What do I love about this place? And how can we share it with others in these beautiful walls? And how do we want to make plans for it? I leave you with this practice as you go into yet another year of great and many changes, building on the legacy of the members who have gone before, of the hardworking Deeper Roots, Wider Wings, and Gateways team, of Toby Tyler's deep dedication. I understand that even just less than a week ago, maybe, he was still on Zoom making calls talking about getting this finished. He still loves us and will be loving us in the embrace of those walls, and so will you for generations to come. And for all of that, I'm so grateful. Let's sing together. Come and go with me to that land. I invite you to stand in body or spirit.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where
whether when you see each other again after a long week or after a long time, or even Wednesday, Thursday, Friday nights, as well as Sundays if you're like on the board. Remember those hands, the love in those hands, and the love that you have to give. And remember how a world needs to see what you have and what you build together. Go in peace, be in peace. And when you can't quite find it, remember, we'll be here again next Sunday. We'll help you find it. Go in peace, be in peace.